Begin the current Daf, Mesech is Gitin Daf Zayin, begin 10 lines down at the top of the Amid. The Gemara continues in the related discussion of the previous Daf. It was really parenthetical, but the Gemara was discussing a halacha regarding the halacha of Bavel. And we had this machlekes and regarding Rabbi Yasser. And Rabbi Yasser had said that Gitin Aboim B'Sham Lekan, that come from Bavel Teretz, so you don't have to say before the Nechta. So that was the discussion regarding why would that be? Is it because in Bavel there became Lishma, or is it because, no, you could even say everyone Rabbi Isli Derava, but it's simply because of the halacha of Eidim Mitzrin Lekaim. It's very far away. Because Mishkal Shchichi, because people travel from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael back and forth. So in that discussion it came up, saying, really, we should rely on Rabbi Yasser? Was weißt der schon? Atamul Chachem is it? Weißt nicht, wie viel der halacha inserted. He doesn't even know that when you write words from a pasuk, you have to score the lines. And then he said, that doesn't mean it's not a Tamil Chacham, Migmiri. I'm saying, if he doesn't know a svar, one thing, but he didn't hear this halacha, that doesn't mean. So once we introduce halacha b'sirtu, so the Gemara goes into a further discussion regarding this halacha of sirtu. During today's daf. So I'm discussing today's daf is the halacha of sirtu, which is that when you write words from a pasuk, you have to make lines underneath, or Taisa discusses somewhere there in the writing. Doim Hashem, how to translate a pasuk to be silent to Hashem. A few Agadic teachings on that. Several decrees intended to avoid excessive drive to the Churban, and one of those is the halacha of Zimra, not to play musical instruments or even possibly to sing after the Churban Beis Hamikdash. Agadic teaching regarding tzedakah. Then the Gemara on Amid Beis discusses Tzafayin Yisrael. So what's the northern boundary of Eretz Yisrael? Well, obviously related to halacha of our Mishnah, which opens up and says Merekem leMizrach, Merekem Kim Mizrach, and it talks about the different boundaries of Eretz Yisrael. The halacha of Amhevi Get Besvina. The Gemara brings a machlekes. If we bring a get in a boat, what's the halacha in regards to the halacha b'fani nechtav, as is it part of Eretz Yisrael or not? And the daf ends off with Atzis Nakav, which is regarding a flower pot that has a hole in the bottom, to be viewed that as connected to the ground or not. So we begin the current Daf Zayin, 10 lines down. And as we said in the previous Daf, we discussed Sirtut scoring lines, Psukim written in a letter. So now the Gemara brings other correspondence where Sirtut was required, although really the main ideas of these Agadic teachings are not related, but it's because it brings up the concept of Sirtut, so we discuss it. Says the Gemara, Shalach le Mar'uk v'l Rebbe Elazar. Mar'uk sent Rebbe Elazar the following letter. He said, B'nei Adam ha'imdim alai. Says, I have people that are standing up against me, that they're being difficult people to me, and they're hurting me, they're bothering me. Ubiyadi l'masam l'malchus, and I have the ability to hand them over to the government. I could slander them to the government, and I'll be done with them. Now, what's the halacha? So Sirtit for Kassim, again, that's why I bring it, really, it's unrelated, but it's because he carved in his paper, the parchment, and he sent him back a pasuk and Tehillim. That's why he did Sirtit. Omarti, I said, Eshmero darchi mechatoy b'lashoni, says David HaMelech, that I'm going to safeguard my path from sinning with my tongue. Eshmero lafi machsim, everyone knows the machsim lafi. Eshmero lafi machsim, I'm going to guard my mouth from and muzzling. Ba'id rosh negdi, as when there's a wicked person opposite me. So the way he darshaned, Rebbe Elazar, the pasuk, was although there's a wicked person opposite me that's fighting me and provoking me and bothering me, still says David HaMelech, I'm going to guard my mouth and keep it muzzled, keep it quiet. So even though someone's bothering you, and you have the ability to be malshin him to the government, David HaMelech says, don't do that. But Shalach sent them back again. He says, but they're really bothering me. And they can't survive. I can't withstand what they're doing to me. So Shalach sent him another pasuk and tell him, Doim la Hashem, be silent to Hashem, v'hischaylaloi. So what does that mean? So it really means daven. But what he means to say here is the way he darshan is Doim la Hashem, be quiet to Hashem, so he's reading the Hischaylaloi from the Shirish of Chalal, which Chalal means a dead person. So be quiet to Hashem, and he'll make them fall corpses. Hashkem ahead of Alein leBeis HaMedrash, get up early and go stay at night late in the Beis HaMedrash. Being Kol Alein, and they're going to be depleted by themselves. Which, as Taisa explains, that he darshans the word doim like dimdume chama, which means to say that, when the sun is like dimming, both early in the morning when it's just starting and at night when it's getting late, that's when you should be doim like by the dume chama to Hashem, meaning be in the Beis Medrash early in the morning and late at night. Taisa says, I the Gemara Baba Kama, that Tzad Gimel says, Hamaisa dinu l'shamayim, if you turn to Hashem and say, I can't deal with this person, you're going to punish him, hu nenish tchila, the one who reaches out to Hashem that way gets punished first. So how could he tell him to do this? Says Taisus two pshatim. First of all, the Gemara there says only if the isli din ba'ara, if you have a way out here in this land, what are you going to Hashem? Or hashkem aleim lebeis medrash means don't daven to Hashem to punish this guy. Says Taisus lasik batoida. Come to the early Daf Yomi, learn early in the morning. The only asanim yapim chalulim, be done with them. But of course, not supposed to reach out to Hashem and tell him to punish this guy, this oizvav, this, he parks in my driveway, he blocks my thing. That's not what you're supposed to say. Which Taisa, also the other Taisa, for some reason, feels it important to quote the Gemara in Zvachim, that darshans the word doim in another way. By the Yidamarin, that the drush is, even if he's hippalochalalim, even if he has many of your members of your family that die, still doim l'Hashem, a person should be quiet to Hashem. But Al Kapanim over here, the way he's darshaning is, be quiet to Hashem, don't slander him, and Hashem, don't worry, just go and daven or learn whichever pshat and taisa is, and they will get punished. So the words came out from the mouth of Rabbi Lazar, meaning the one who sent him back this letter quoting this pasuk, and right away, they placed Geniva, who was the one fighting with him. They put him B'koiler into these iron chains, which those who are sentenced by the government to be executed are put into these chains. Right away, they put Geniva into those chains. Now, another incident corresponds again because of Sirtud. Sholchu le'lemar ukva. Yeah. Geneva, yeah. So, Sholchu le'lemar ukva, they sent to Mar Ukva the following question. Zimra, to sing, the way Rashi says, Taisa discusses the correctness of this teaching, but to sing in the bars or by the festive areas. Taisa says that a shir shal mitzvah is permitted. For example, by a chuppah with a mesamechas and mekala. Now it's taka chuppahs, they do that, taka kumsitz, whatever. But al kapanim, but without a chasna, minolan da'asa. How do we know that singing is forbidden? So Sirtud v'kasabu, again, Sirtud, he went and he carved out on the letter and he wrote him the following pasuk in Hosea. Al tismach Yisrael. Jews do not rejoice, el gil, and the girsa is ka'amim, to rejoice like the nations. We don't do that anymore. So it says the Gemara, why didn't they send him a pasuk in Yeshaya? Bashir lo yishtu yayin, with song you shouldn't drink wine. Yemar, it should be bitter. Shecher l'shaisav, the hard liquor for those who drink it. Says the Gemara, no, imahu, if I only had that pasuk, not to sing, I would have thought that that's only talking about the song that comes from an instrument, like a harp. That's actually the pasuk before that. That's why Rashi explains, talk my kiner. The pasuk before that is talking about instruments. I would have thought only that's us. But to sing with one mouth, I would have thought to say that that's permitted, allowed to just sing. That's why we needed this pasuk to say that no, even any type of song is going to be forbidden. Now, continuing in a related vein, but the teaching we said before regarding being quiet when you have your adversaries. So the pasuk, the Amalei Rav Huna bar Nosson Rav Ashi, he says, what does it mean the pasuk in Yehoshua? It says, when it was talking about the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael, it demarcates with the different places that were there along the border. So it mentions Kina, V'dimayna, V'adada. It says what is this pasuk? So Rav Ashi says, what do you mean? It's counting the places of Eretz Yisrael along the border. Amalei said to him, I said, you think I didn't know that it's mentioned the place of Eretz Yisrael? I could also read a pasuk. Ella, what was my question is, Rav Gevia Me'argiza. That's the name of a place. This Rav Gevia, Amabataima. He said, Pshat, Agadik, teachings in these words of the pasuk. It's not stam places. There's a deeper understanding of what these things mean. And he translated like this. Kol sheyesh li kina al chaveroi, which Rashi translates, it doesn't really mean jealousy. A lot of times it means the word kas. If someone is furious on his friend because of the pain that he pained him, v'doimim, but he's quiet, shoichin adeyad, the one who dwells up above, din will do a judgment for him. So if you look at the pasuk again, you'll see kina v'dimoin of adada is someone that has kina al chavedoi, and he's dimoin, he's doimim. So adada, the one who dwells adeyad forever and ever, he's going to do a judgment for him. So that's what the pasuk is coming to teach us again. That someone was hurt by someone, shvaig, be quiet, and Hashem will go ahead and punish the person. And so on that Amalei, Rav Ashi said to him, really? Like he's taking all these words of the psukim and machtaga as a vertel azar, macht as a drusha. Says, if that's the case, what are you going to do with the psukim later on? Tziklag umadmana v'tzansana hochinami. Like he's picking like harder words over here. It's like let's up the ante over here. Well, every place over there he's going to make a drusha. He's going to make a vertel. So Amalei says, if Rav Gvi would be here, he would say a pshat. It's not stam, you read Torah Shabbat, you think it's just the words, just places. There's deeper understandings over here. So Rav Acha b'bei Chazah, he said a pshat, Rav Acha from Chazah. He says, I'll translate this pasuk as follows. Whoever has a screaming of parnasa on his friend, meaning that his friend is stealing from him, and he's coming to his livelihood, where he's getting involved. Let's say he's taking over his parnasa. This guy had one line in Amazon, and his friend's opening up the same line, mamish, taking all his customers. V'daimim, and he's quiet. So sheichin bisneh, the one who dwells in the thorny bush, oisleidin, would do a judgment. So if you look at the pasuk again, so tziklag is takas legima, and madmana is doimim, and sansana is the word of sneh. So again, the same idea that if someone has someone bothering him, if he's quiet, Hashem will do the din for him. Now, going back to what we mentioned before regarding the Isra of Zimra, the Isra of song, now once the Churban Beis HaMikdash, so the Gemara discussed a similar prohibition for the Zaychel Churban. Amalei Rish Galusa Rav Huna. Rish Galusa was the one in charge of the Jews in the diaspora. He was like the Nasi in Bavel. He said to Rav Huna, Klila, which they would make, the way Rashi says, the crowns for the Chasanim. That there were some that were made out of gold and silver, and the purple gear says, and there were some that were dyed, and they would make figures in them with sulfur and salt, and some were made out of myrtles and roses. Either way, these crowns they made for the Chasanim, and Nolan the Asab, from where do we know that it's forbidden to make these crowns? So Amalei says, Midirabanan. This is a rabbinic prohibition after the Churban. Because now, like we learned the Mishnah Masechta that we didn't have so long ago, this Masechta right before this towards the end, it says, Bepulmas, in the siege that was laid by Shel Aspasianis, which was before Titus came, which was the final straw, Gazru ala Tages Chasanim. They made a decree, again because they wanted to diminish because of the pain, the tzara that they were going through. They decreed on the crowns of the grooms, Vala Irus, which in the last parak of Seitan, Daf Memtesem Beis says Irus is this instrument that this bell that has one knocker and it makes noise. So they made a gzeir on that. So it's rabbinic. Now, Tais just brings down that Rashi explains that this Ataras Chasanim is literally a crown that the Chasanim would wear. Tais doesn't like that pshat. And he proves because it was made out of reeds and says no one's wearing a crown out of reeds. So rather, Tais actually says that it was like a type of a chuppah. It was a type of a canopy that they would make. And that's what they said was forbidden because of Simchi Yisera. So it's either a crown or a type of a chuppah, but Al Kapanim, this is what they said is forbidden because of rabbinic. Now, the Hachi, come Rav Huna Lafnuye. In the meantime, Rav Huna got up to relieve himself. Rav Huna was the one who responded to Resh Galusa, and he said it's rabbinic. But when Rav Huna went to the lavatory, Amalei Rav Chizda, who is the student of Rav Huna, he wouldn't respond when his Rebbe is over there. Rav Huna got up, so he said, Rav Chizda said to Rav Eshkelusa, Kroksiv, it's a pasuk. What's the pasuk? It's a pasuk in Yechezkel. It says, Koyomar Hashem Elikim, so says Hashem God, Hasir HaMitznefes, remove the mitznefes, it's the hat, and lift off the crown. Zois loy zois, this, not this. Hashfala hagbe, the one on the bottom is uplifted. V'hagvoya hashbel, and the one on the top is lowered down. Now, says Rav Chizda, Chimain mitznefes eitz latara. What does the mitznefes, which is one of the big kahuna from the Kohen Gadol, as Taisus proves that the Kohen Hedyet's hat was called a mikbas, as it says, Vasislam avotim avot avnetim umikbois. But that of the Kohen Gadol was called a mitznefes. And the reason for that is, the Riva actually says interestingly, because the Kohen Hedyet didn't have a tzitz, so it's very big. So that's called mikbas. The Kohen Gadol's, his hat was smaller because he had the tzitz, so that's called mitznefes. Although Taisus does bring from the read that we seem to see that the Lashonis are intermixed, but that's how Taisus explains. So, what does the mitznefes, the hat of the Kohen Gadol, have to do with a natar, with a crown? So says Rav Chizda, I'll tell you. Elamcha rather it's coming to tell you, Bizman shemitznefes b'reish Kohen Gadol, when the Kohen Gadol is wearing his mitznefes, meaning the base of Mikdash around the doing the avodah, then natar b'reish kaladim. Then every single person, the chazan, can wear their crowns. Nistalka mitznefes b'reish Kohen Gadol, when the mitznefes is taking off from the head of the Kohen Gadol, nistalka tachem b'reish kaladim. That's it. Everyone has to take off their crowns. So different says Rav Chizda, oh, that's the pshat. Why nach the chubin we don't have anymore? Taras chasanim. In the meantime, Rav Huna is coming back. He's making his ashriyotze, coming back from the restroom. Ashkechin Davayasvi, he found them sitting over there. So Amalei, so Mustama was like Ruach HaKodesh. It doesn't say that he heard them saying this. He came back. They already finished talking. They're waiting for him. Amalei, Rav Huna said to Rav Chizda, Ha'elekim, by God, midrabanan. No, this is only a rabbinic isser, because this pasuk that you're bringing of the atara actually refers to the crown of the king, where the Navi was prophesizing that the kahuna is going to be nullified and the king Tzidkiyahu is going to be exiled. So it has nothing to do with your drasha that you're saying. But your name is Chizda, and your words are also kind, as it's like we know kalana b'chasuda. It's like a term of beautiful. Yeah. Shine the pshat. Aber soll wissen, das ist nicht die richtige Halucha. It's not an Issa D'Oraisa. It's not Medibur Kabbalah. You don't learn that from a pasuk in the Tanakh. It's an Issa D'Rabbanan. Now, related to this teaching, Ravina Ashkechil Mabar Avashi, he encountered Mabar Avashi that a Gadol Kalila Labrate. He was weaving a Kalila, a crown for his daughter, the Kala. So Tata was tin was on Tochte, was making the crown for his daughter's Chasna. Amalei, so Ravina said to him, doesn't the master hold Hasam mitznefes v'armatar, the pasuk of Chizda brought, remove the mitznefes and take off the crown? You don't wear crowns anymore by chasnas anymore, nuch the churban? Amalei says, no, Dumi the Kohen Gadol. It's similar to the Kohen Gadol, but Gavri. The Kohen Gadol was a man. And that's what saying, the crown of all people which are men. But regarding women, then we don't say that, and women are allowed to wear their crowns by the chasna. Now the Gemara asks, my zois le zois. We brought in this pasuk, okay, whether it means a chasna, whether it means a melech, but be that as it may, it says that let them remove their mitznefes and the crown, because it says zois le zois. This, not this. What does it mean? Sometimes he would say in the name of Ravami, but sometimes he would say over the name of Avasi. Now, what was the teaching? When Hashem said to the Jewish people, remove take off the mitznefes and take off the crown. So these next words are the words of the Malach HaShagos in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They said one word and Hashem responded 2 words. Master of the world, Zois lehem Yisrael, Azoy titman to the Yiddish folk. This is for the Jews. Very appropriate coming up this week. B'Sinai, Nasal Nishma. They prefaced Nasa before Nishma, meaning they didn't even hear what you were going to ask. They said, you tell us, we'll jump, tell us how high. We'll do, and then we'll listen. Zois, you could do such a thing? That you're going to punish them, the Churban Beis HaMikdash? Let me say to them, Loi Zois Len Yisrael? So that's Hashem's response. Not this to the Jewish people? Meaning, because the pasuk goes on to say, because they lowered what's on top and they elevated what's on the bottom, meaning they put a tzelem, they put a avodah zarah in the heichel, an idol. It says, well, I shouldn't do this. They took the kedusha, the ruchnis, everything, and put it down on the ground, and they put what was nidrig and put it up there, and therefore that's what the pasuk is talking about. Now, the Gemara brings another Darish Rabavira, who just said Darish Rabavira, and sometimes the name, some of the names. So we bring a similar, another idea, unrelated idea. Zim nomale mishmei Ravami. Again, sometimes he would say over here Ravami. Zim nomale mishmei Ravasi. There's two rebbes that maybe had similar drashas. Maidich said, what's in the pasuk in Nachum? It says, Koyma Hashem, so says Hashem, Im shleimim, if they're whole, v'chein rabim, and if they're many, even so, v'chein negaizu, so it will be cut. Ba'over, b'goymen, it will be sent away, etc. So what does this pasuk mean? So he says it in the drasha. So it's again, like you see, that it's not always a chassidish, a rebbe shapsha when you say so. This is really the Gemara says these types of things. If someone sees that his food is precise, it's very limited, it's constricted, so it's actually you don't have so much food. You do actually. Ironically, the opposite. Yasmin tzedakah. You should take the little that you have and do charity with it. And all the more so when you have metch. So as Rashi explained, this is what the pasuk is saying. Is im shleimim means if your food is whole, meaning you have only it's intact, but you only have mamish exactly amount to feed your family. And for sure, if it's v'chein rabim, for sure if you have a lot of food, so you should give it tzedakah. Now it says the Gemara, "My b'chein negayz above." Then what? How do you read the rest of the pasuk? And so it will be cut, and then it's going to pass. So Rabbi Shmuel was told the Brisa of Yeshiva Rabbi Shmuel that kol hagayz is minachasa, whoever cuts off from his assets, v'oisem and tzedakah, and he gives charity from it, needs medina shel Gehenna, is going to be saved from the judgment of Gehenna. And that's what the pasuk is saying. This v'gayzu because mashal shtei rechilis. It could be a parable to two shepsala, to two sheep, to use. Show you oivis b'mayim. They were passing in the water. Now achas gezuza, one had its wool shorn. Achas eni gezuza, one didn't have it shorn. Gezuza avra, the one that had the wool shorn was able to pass by, but v'she'eni gezuza ever, the one that had all its wool in it, guess what happens? It goes into the water. And I go, yeah, because it's too heavy, it gets weighed down by the wool. So says Rashi. That's what the pasuk is telling us. If you cut off from your assets and you give it to tzedakah, that's what the pasuk is saying. Va'avar, and you'll be able to pass through. Getting there to the next world is a journey. And if you all weigh down with all your nechasim, you're going to get hazonk, you're not going to get there. But if you take it off, you share it, you give it to tzedakah, then that's what the pasuk is saying, that you'll get there to Gan Eden. Gitin Daf, the pasuk. The end of that passage that we just quoted says, "V'inisich," and I will afflict you. So what does this come to teach again? If the whole passage is talking about giving tzedakah, so Mamazuchi says to teach you the word "inisich" is the word "ani." Afil ani hamispanis min tzedakah. Even the pauper who he himself gets provided from tzedakah, said tzedakah, he should also give tzedakah. And the passage there says, "Lo anech eid," I will not afflict you anymore. So Rabbi Yisrael told the Brisa, "Shuvin manaloi simona aniyas," and they're not going to show him any more signs of poverty. So that's the paradox. If a person is limited and he comes for tzedakah and says, "Chenish," says the Gemara, "No, punk faket." Then is when you give, and then that will take you out of your aniyas. Going back to halacha of our Mishnah, which we had mentioned, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, he was talking about what's chutzlarts, because why is important to know chutzlarts in our Mesechta of Gitin, because there's talking about you bring from Medina Sayam, again depending where exactly, but essentially in Chutzlaret you bring it to Eretz Yisrael, you have to say b'fani nechtam. So Rabbi Yehuda was telling us Merekim lemizach b'chulu, and he's going through all the different directions, the four sides. The left side, obviously, as this picture shows, didn't need us to tell us because that's the Yam HaGadol. But regarding all the other three sides, he was telling us which is the boundary to know that what's beyond it, and one of them was me'akal etzafin. Akka is at the northernmost point of Eretz Yisrael, and beyond that, to the north, you have to say b'fani nechta. What? You want to know which Akka really is? Yeah, you have to know. Did they make it? I'm not going to vouch for all the different. Where's Haifa?
Much lower.
Much lower.
Sure. North to the west. So
Huh. He's going to check on his map. So, Akapanim, so the Gemara says, remember that to say the Akla Tzvain the Eretz Yisrael Kaima? Is that really, that Akla is the northernmost point of Eretz Yisrael, and therefore he's saying beyond it is going to be considered as Chutz La'aretz? But for the Minu, the Gemara asks from the following Brisa. Now it sounds like from what the Gemara is going to bring from a Brisa is that Akla was in the eastern boundary of Eretz Yisrael. So I don't know if I like this picture drawing so much.
it comes out.
Who Akra? But it's on the eastern part of Eretz Yisrael, but it's drawn to the northernmost point a day or two towards the south, meaning it sounds like from the Brisa we're going to bring right now is that it's by not here really. It sounds like it's really Akka is, where's Akka on the east? Towards the west.
It's on the water line.
Rashi makes it sound like the Akka can begvul mizracha. Maybe that's what they're thinking. Begvul mizracha shel Eretz Yisrael, on the eastern boundary of Eretz Yisrael. Unless maybe it means something else. I know all the pictures don't show Akka over there, but I don't know why. Unless maybe that's only the Gemara's having. But Al Kapanim, it sounds like that it's by the eastern, but it's not all the way by the north. It sounds like that it's a day or two towards the south, because as the Bryce is going to bring, Kiziv sounds like it's the northeastern corner, and the road going from Akka to Kiziv was on the eastern boundary. It's not going to be like that. The truth is, it is towards the west, but it sounds like at this point that it's by the eastern side, and because of the halacha we're going to see in a second. And then you had this, Rashi also brings a picture also, which they bring on the side that it's not really from Rashi itself. It was actually brought in by the Achreinim based on the Marsha. The Marsha was drawn according to what Taisus said. But either way, the Brisa says the following halacha, unrelated to Mesechtes Gitin. It's talking about the halachas of Tumah. It says like this: if someone is going from Akoy to Kiziv, meaning he's going from south to north, so the halach is as follows regarding the laws of Tumah. To his right, Taisa says you don't have to say this word miminoi. Obviously, to the east of the road is obviously, if you're going from Akai to Ksiv, your right is always going to be. Al Kapani says sometimes the road turns. Okay, either way, to the right of the east of the road is going to be Tameh. The land is Tameh because it's to the right of the path. It's going to be Tameh mishum eretz ha'amim. What does that mean? It's going to be Tameh. This halacha that the Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos, Daf Yudalid, that they made a gezeira of Tumah on Eretz Ha'amim, on Chutz La'aretz. Okay, so if you veer off to the path to the right, you're going to be Tameh because of Chutz La'aretz. Now, moreover, since we're saying that to the right of the path is Chutz La'aretz, upetura min ha'maiser min ha'shviyas, you're exempt from the laws of maiser and shmita, like the way it is by Chutz La'aretz. Until you know that it is obligated. In other words, we're always going to presume that the right of the road from Akka to Kiziv is Eretz Ha'amim, is Chutz La'aretz. Only because you come to a place that those who are well versed, they're going to tell you, I just want you to know here the road turns. You're going into a little bit into Eretz Yisrael proper, and the right of the road will actually be Eretz Yisrael. So that's until you know, however, presume that it's Chutz La'aretz. Now, at the same time, Ismailoi, to the left, Lamarva derech, to the west of the road, and that's why it sounds like that we're going on the eastern boundary of Eretz Yisrael, because it says to the left is Tahorim Shem Eretz Ha'amim. It's not going to have Tumas Chutz La'aretz. You're going to be obligated in tithing and the laws of Shemitah of like the land of Eretz Yisrael. Until you know for sure that you're part of mean that the road veers a little bit to the right. But Ad Heichen, says the Brisa. Now, until how far is it that we're going to say that you're going from Akoy towards the north, that is going to be this halacha that, let's say, to the left will be Eretz Yisrael? Says the Brisa at Kiziv. That's what the Tanna Kama said, till Kiziv. Shmuel Rabbi Yisi, he said the name of his father Rabbi Yisi. No, a little bit further, ad Lav Levai, until Lav Levai. Okay, that's the name of a place. But one thing is Rashi explains the Gemara's question, we see that Akko is a little bit towards the south, and Kiziv, or maybe even Lavlavoy, is the northernmost point. So what is Rabbi Yehuda Mishnah saying that Akko Litzafin, the Akko Kitzafin, that it's the northernmost point, anything beyond it is Chutz La'aretz? Don't you see that there's Kiziv that's further north? So Abai said, no, the truth is, if you draw Eretz Yisrael like a square, Akko is the northernmost point. It's just that there's a Ritzua. There's a small strip that's Nafka that comes out from Akko towards the north, which is from Eretz Yisrael. So as the picture in Rashi draws, again, whether Akko is on the eastern front, or maybe that's only according to the Gemara's Havamina, because it's thought that, towards the left is Eretz Yisrael, but if it's whether on the west, be that as made, there's a strip that comes out that goes to Kiziv, so you're not going to say Kiziv is the northernmost point, because that's just a strip coming out, but there is, technically there is a strip coming out that we would have this halacha of this strip. The problem, says the Gemara, is V'yov Tana Simona Hachi, really? Is the Tana going to give such a sign? In other words, is one strip so significant that the Tana is going to give a simon on it in that previous brisa to tell you if you're walking on this strip that what the halacha is towards your right and towards your left? Says the Gemara, Kronami Yov Simona. A pasuk also gives a sign with a strip like a little path in a pasuk. So you see, it is significant enough to discuss. Shtei discusses what does that really mean. One's talking about
talking about their ISIS. Why wouldn't it go there? Until a safe spot. I mean, Shmita, not the Shmita, was the Raisa talking about right to the road, left to the road. We're so makpid in other areas. Why wouldn't they say, listen, we really don't know. So until you get to Damascus, we're going to hold hill for streets.
Right. That's a good shaila. Why? I mean, you're saying that when we say you could assume, it sounds like that we do go based on assumptions. Let's say when we have chazakis and we have right, we don't always say, okay, we don't know. We're going to say lochamra. It's very easy to do that, the Gemara says. But I'm saying at the same time, we go based on. I'm saying if let's say there's a majority, right? If there's a majority, right? We say you might be eating bugs. You bought that hashkacha product, and we go on mir hamatzah, mir she'ein hamatzah is like might be some bugs, right? But halacha considers majority, considers presumed assumptions. There's all these halachas. So here also by the road, if 9 out of 10 times it's going to be on the right side chutzlars, so we say it's going to be chutzlars until you know definitively otherwise, which removes it from the chazaka or whatever it is, or from the right. So definitely, good question, but there are definitely times that we don't know things with absolute certainty. We're not going to be machmer. But Al Kapan, what the Gemara is saying is that, we have a pasuk that says that we'll go based on a small sign, a small strip. The clearly says a pasuk in Shaftim. The Yomir, they said, again, unrelated to what we're discussing, but we just want to show that the pasuk considers a small strip of road as significant because it's using it as a simon for not logistics, for the what's those points? Those just slipped my mind. I was about to say it. You know what word you have to say. I mean, when you have on the map on the points, the what? Whatever. I had it on my head, on my tongue. No, I mean the place where the dot. You have on your Google Maps. You have these. Not a pin. Okay. Remember they said, "Hine chag Hashem b'Shiloi miyam yamima." Behold, that it was a Yom Tov of Hashem in Shiloi from year to year. Hashem mitzvayin lebeis. Oh, coordinates. See, I got up for the Torah and remember what they were. Coordinates. It's just telling you where the points are. Hashem mitzvayin lebeis el, as to the north of Beis El. Mizracha Hashemesh lemesila. It's to the east of the sun, to the path ha'oila me Beis El Shchema, that goes up from Beis El to Shechem, or Menegev Levayna, and to the south of Levayna. Where Vamra Papi explained in translation of the pasuk, he says, "Lemizracha shal Mesila," to the east of the path. In other words, the pasuk is telling you where Shiloh is, where it's to the north of Beis El, and obviously, Rashi is just explaining what Rav Papa is coming to tell us. He said, obviously, Mizracha Hashemesh, to the east of the sun, is going on the Mesila, on the path. Meaning, Shiloi was the north of Beisel, and it was on the east of a path, and then the south of Levina, which as Rashi, again, this picture, which is also brought in from the Maharsha, it's not really Rashi's picture, but again, it's telling you where exactly is Shiloi, and it's telling you, as you see in that picture, it's the south of Levana, and one of the coordinates is telling you it's to the east of the path which goes from Beisel to Shechem. So a path is being used as a way of defining where Shiloi is. So you see, even the path is given significance in the coordinate or in regarding to a mapping. So the Mishnah, the Brisa will bring a halacha of a path, even though it's just a path. As you see, a pasuk itself brings a path in regards to telling you where Shiloi actually was. Now, going back to the halacha of our Mishnah of bringing a get from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, that you have to say b'fanei nechtam. So we have a machlekes regarding bringing a get that was written on a boat. So we learned in the Brisa, Hamevi get b'svina. If someone brings a get on the boat, meaning like Rashi, it was written on the boat, and the Gemara assumes right now that we're talking about the rivers of Eretz Yisrael. So in the rivers of Eretz Yisrael, someone's a wealthy guy, playboy is on his boat. He's like, that's it, we're done. He writes the get. They're fighting on this vacation, and he sends the get off. So it's Kamevi Be'eretz Yisrael. It's as if it was brought on dry land in Eretz Yisrael, and therefore you don't have to say b'fanei nechtam, like we say in Eretz Yisrael. Tanidach, we learn another brayso that says Kamevi b'chutz la'aretz, like you brought in chutz la'aretz. Why? Because the river does not have the halacha of the dry land for all the halachas of Eretz Yisrael, and therefore you would have to say b'fanei nechtam. It's not in Eretz Yisrael proper. So what's the halacha? Seems to be a stira. So Amar Birmi says like Kasha is not a difficulty because it's a machlekes. The second brisa that says like chutz la'aretz is Rabbi Yehuda. The first brisa is Rabbanan. What does this mean? Now we learn the Mishnah in Mesechta Chala. Mishnah says, "Offer chutz la'aretz." What happens if someone takes earth from chutz la'aretz? Let's say the high quality in Italy. There's this earth that you could cultivate certain types of produce, and it only grows over there. And so the guy goes to Italy. He brings this earth of chutz la'aretz, haba b'svina la'aretz, that comes in the boat to Eretz Yisrael. They planted it on the boat, and it grew, it sprouted. Now, as the machlekes Rashi and Taisus is the boat earthenware, or Taisus says no, it's wood, but the way Rashi says is the boat is earthenware, and therefore you don't have to have any holes in the boat, meaning it was laying on the ground, as the Gemara says, meaning to say it could nourish from the ground of Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, it says the Tanna Kama chayav b'maisa b'shviyas. You're going to be obligated in tithes and in the Shemitah because the rivers of Eretz Yisrael are like Eretz Yisrael, so it's growing in Eretz Yisrael. I said the word so many times I feel like it's the longest Pesach or something like that. But he's going to be chayiv in Meiser and in Shemitah. That's what the Tanna Kama says. On that, Rabbi Yehuda says, no, Amos said, when do we say this? Is Bizman Shasvini Gesheshes. We only said this when the ship is grounded on the ground. Because let's say the water's not so deep, so it's on the ground. That's when we would say that what you're growing in this earth on the boat would be chayiv in meisters and shvius. But if the boat is not grounded, then potter, you're going to be exempt. So you see, this is the machlekes between the Chacham and Rabbi Yehuda, is the machlekes between these two brises. Rabbi Yehuda could say there's a boat in the water. If it's not touching the ground, that's chutz la'aretz, and therefore you're potter from meiser and shmita. Tanna Kama says no, you can be chayv meiser shmita. He says the rivers are like Eretz Yisrael. So that is the machlekes between these two different brises. Yeah. So essentially, that's what the Gemara is going to bring in a second. That's what Taisus discusses regarding that. Do we say what are the differences between the boat and regarding the a flower pot? But essentially that's what it's like. Which that's what Taisus. There's an interesting Taisus actually says, even though the ground of the water is Eretz Yisrael, says it's worse than muvlois that we mentioned before, because Tais basically by question. He says if mavlois, we say is like if it's absorbed in the techum. So he says but that even though the ground is Eretz Yisrael, but lamaisa you're on the water. It's not the same thing as on dry land itself. But then Tais asks the obvious question: what does a get have to do with meiser? He says if someone brings a get on the third floor in Eretz Yisrael, it's going to be like he brought it from Chutz La'aretz because the earth that was over there is from Chutz La'aretz, would be part of a meiser because it's not on the ground. So therefore, if you bring it on the third floor, you're going to be pater. So the Ri says, no, you can't compare an aliyah, an upper story, where the ground beneath it is at least fit for planting, and therefore would be chayv ma'is and shmita, because it would be on the first floor, whereas by a boat, it's not like that. So therefore, the Gemara wants to compare these two halachas, which obviously could be debated if you can compare them, but you see that if you're in the waters, is that considered like you're in Eretz Yisrael or not? Is a machlekes regarding... So that's what we're going to discuss in a second. We're getting up to that. So
implications are really great because they're very hydrophonics today in Eretz Yisrael, whether or not Shmit is no gain in hydroponics.
Right. Well, right. Right. I'm saying the pashtus would be right. So that's exactly. Taisa discusses that if the ground beneath it would be fit. Right. Exactly. So that's one pshat that it's machlekes. But Abaye Amar, he says that actually. No, you don't have to say that. You could say ha v'ha Rabbi Yehuda. You could say actually both of them are Rabbi Yehuda. Lekash, not difficult. Kan, the second brisa says like chutz la'aretz b'zman she'enas v'nikasheshes. If the boat is not grounded, so then it's like chutz la'aretz. Kan, the first brisa that says like Eretz Yisrael b'zman she'enas v'nikasheshes, when the boat is grounded, so they could both be like Rabbi Yehuda. Now the Gemara says based on what we mentioned that everyone had been bringing up, it is related to the following halacha. He says otzitz, which it's called a flower pot, or whatever it's called, a pot of wood that's nokuv, that has a hole, hamunach al gabi yaseders, that's placed on pegs like many flower pots have. We come to the machlekes Rabbi Rabbanan, meaning according to the Rabbanan that if you're in the ear space, it's like you're laying down when you're in the boat and you're 100 feet up from the ground of the ocean, of the lake, whatever it is. It's like it's on the ground. Therefore, you chayiv and ma'is and shmita. Okay, so here you would be chayiv and ma'is and shmita. But Rabbi Yehuda, you wouldn't be chayiv and ma'is and deraisa until it's on the ground itself. Seemingly, that's totally in the same machlekes that we mentioned before. Which one? Right, so that's the shaila, that's what Tosfos and Rashi discuss regarding if it's absorbent because of its being earthenware or wood. It's machlekes Tosfos and Rashi, which one? Yeah, right. So that would depend what the material is made out of. That's why we're saying that it has a hole. So the hole would take that role of the absorbency. It's a machlekes Tosfos and Rashi regarding which one is more or not. He says that wood doesn't need a hole because it's meslach l'chyosim l'acheres. He said it gets wetter than earthenware. So you have to know. Balkapanim, it's the same idea. It does have to be on the ground proper, or no? Could it be higher up and it's still going to nourish from the ground? However, Amar Rabbi says no. Dimalahi. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe it's not comparable. Why? Ad kan lekam Rabbi Yehuda. Where do we find Rabbi Yehuda over there that says it doesn't help the boat in the water? Meaning, if it's not on the ground, that's Ela B'Svina. Maybe he only said it won't be considered Eretz Yisrael in the boat. Why? As a Gitin Daf of Chesed Av, Hasui Levrayach. In other words, like Rashi says, because it's always moving. So, with movement and the fact that it's not on the ground, okay, that will tell us that it's not going to be considered as the ground beneath it. But regarding the flower pot that doesn't move, then maybe there he wouldn't say it wouldn't be considered as part of Eretz Yisrael. Maybe there he actually would say it is. So it's not a raya that Rabbi Yehuda would hold that the Atzis Nalkib would not be considered as Eretz Yisrael. Or you could say the other way too. Ad can like come Rabban Hasan. Where do you find the Rabban over there saying that it is going to be considered by the boat as the ground beneath it? Maybe that's El Basrina only by a boat. Why? Because mifsik avira. There's no air space separating between the boat and the ground. There's no air. Because the maya, the water, ki aris michtadami, is like thicker ground, meaning it's like it's considered connected with the ground, and therefore there's nothing separating. But by the flower pot, the mafsik avira with this air space, then Lloyd, maybe I would say that even the Rabbanan would agree that would be a break in the connection and it would not be considered as part of Eretz Yisrael. So the says the Gemara, it's not a raya that this machlekes between the Rabbanan would be the same machlekes regarding the atzitz nakab or not. Thank you to any time. Those things.